Hi, my name is Josh Yakunich of Post Pioneer, and you are listening to Music Existence.
Welcome to another instance of Music Existence, where because of music, we exist. Right here with me, I have Josh Yakunich, who made his mark back in the late 90s and early 2000s with the bands The Proms and the Beatnik Termites. And now after 25 years of this hiatus or hibernation, as he puts it, he's back with an all-new sound and an all-new project called Post Pioneer. He punctuated this year with 2 EPs, The Frames and The Faded Picture, and he's got a new song out called Find a Way. We're going to talk about all of that. Josh, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jake, I really appreciate that intro. Thank you so much. Makes me feel great. I'm happy to be here and happy to connect with you, man. It's going to be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Now, let's take it all back, very beginning. Like when you were younger and just developing your sound, where did it start? Was it like initially that, alternative pop punk sound, or was it like a general kind of rock frame and then branching into it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am a child of the 90s. So when I really started getting into music and wanting to play the guitar, I think I was 12 when I started playing the guitar. So this would have been 1992, which was the height of the grunge movement, or part of the height of the grunge movement.
Yeah, the whole 120 minutes type scene, avant-garde, underground, indie.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a huge Nirvana fan. They were between them and the band Weezer. They were the reasons why I wanted to be in a band.
Yeah.
And so I got a guitar and started playing and started my own band. And I think 14 or something like that, 15. And it was it was just like an alternative rock band at the time. And this was right in the middle of high school, and the last couple of years of high school is where I changed and really started to get into that pop punk sound of the late 90s. That really struck me, not only because I really liked the direction, I liked the energy, but it also came at a point where like I was becoming a better player, and
Right.
so it coincided with me being able to be able to play with other people, to play in bands, and to do so, with moderate success, and actually feel like you were accomplishing something and playing it well. So that's where the whole thing came from. Is it started with the grunge movement, and then that kind of migration into the pop punk world, and the bands that I was in at the time that you'd mentioned early on, they were heavily influenced by 50s and 60s rock and roll. The Beatnik Termites is a band that's actually still around and kicking. They were a Cleveland-based punk band back in the late 80s and early 90s, and I joined kind of midway through, and that was an amazing experience. I mean, they were popular in the Midwest, and we got to do some things that not a lot of people do, and just when they start a band. And when the summer after I graduated high school, which was 1998. We went on a tour with Marky Ramone and the Intruders. So the drummer for the Ramones, his side band at the time, the Ramones were kind of defunct at that point. We got to go on a tour with them and played all over the country. The highlight being playing at the Whiskey A Go Go in Los Angeles.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, that's probably about the biggest flex I have at this point. It was pretty amazing. Got to meet a lot of. I remember meeting Tony Lombardo, the original bass player of the Descendants at the time, and that was huge. I was a huge fan of them, and so just think, I was 18 years old too, so it was like, this is amazing. So
it's like a total geek out moment.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
It was so cool. I mean, being on tour with the Ramones, or with a member from the Ramones, which we were hugely influenced by, and meeting people like, members of the Descendants, and members, I remember we played a show with the Vandals,
Oh
which didn't
man,
go.
the Vandals. That's classic.
Yeah, yeah. It was that was I think the following night in after the Los Angeles show. It was in Orange County, and we opened for the Vandals. So it was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing experience for a kid that was 18 years old.
Yeah, and you mentioned that transition. I mean, I'm younger. I was born in '91. I was born during like the the mainstream kind of boom of grunge. But even then, like when I was a kid, it was pop punk time, and then so I can kind of relate it to that way. And at your case, that transition was a lot. It made a lot of sense basically because once grunge sort of fizzled out, then it gave way for punk and pop punk to enter the mainstream. And like you mentioned, you became like a much more versatile player, and it really speaks to the musician that you are now. So when you were in the Proms, I mean, that was that was the EP that you had called Bubble Bath, and like I saw like a younger picture of you, and I was just like, oh man, this is very reflective of the times.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's so funny that you found that. That was the first thing that I ever released, like through any sort of record label. It was through
That was
a
Mutant Pop.
Mutant Pop. You got it. Yep. And it was me and two other guys that I went to high school with. And we were
Josh, Nick, and Spaghetti.
yes,
Spaghetti.
yes, we were so thrilled to release that album. And it was a 4-song 7-inch that we put out. I still have some of them. I think they're up in my record collection up there. Like I was a very very proud moment. I think I was.
I gotta have a copy.
Yeah. I don't know if I have many to spare. We'll see. But yeah, you found that. That's hilarious. That's a very proud moment. I was 16, I think, 17 maybe when we released that.
Yeah, and you did the song. One of the songs you did was "Rock All Night."
Yes, I wrote that song. Yep, that's the song I wrote. And we did. We actually played that with the Beatnik Termites too, the band that I joined after the Proms as well, just because the style fit very very similarly. Both of those bands were, like I said, were very 50s and 60s rock influenced. I mean, it was almost like you could barely call them punk. It was almost like the Beach Boys or like the Beatles.
Yeah, well,
with,
it's kind of like what the Bangles did, like because they were influenced by the Beatles, but they did it in sort of an '80s kind of jangle pop kind of new wave sort of way.
Right.
So you kind of did that similar transition, right?
Yep, I totally agree. Yes, that was a great analogy. It was just instead of the with the '80s flair, it was with the late '90s flair, which was kind of straightforward punk rock style. Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I saw this note from the owner of Mutant Pop. It was as if it was written as a review. It said T. Chandler, but it was Tim Davenport.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, that's funny. That is funny.
How was he? Was he like his own character?
He was. We had a really unique experience with him. There's a really funny anecdote about that first 7-inch that he helped us put out, which we were super proud of. But I remember when we agreed to put out a record with Mutant Pop, there was another local band in the Cleveland. I lived up in the Cleveland. We were in the Cleveland area at this time, and there was another like local band that we knew of, and I remember our lead singer. So I sang lead on a couple songs, but our primary songwriter was another guy. His name was Eddie.
Eddie Spaghetti, right?
Yeah, you got it. Yep. Eddie was talking to another guy in a local band, and this guy made some comment about like, oh man, are you guys signed with Mutant Pop? Oh, you guys are hot shit. He was kind of joking, but Eddie responded. He was like, man, he's like Mutant Pop. He said the words Mutant Pop ain't shit. But he meant that in a way that was like hey,
in an endearing way or something.
Yeah, in a very endearing way. Like it's a small label. Like it's not like we signed to Epitaph.
But it's like a kind of like a cool kind of label.
Well, there's more to the story though. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
the Tim Davenport from Mutant Pop got wind of that, and he took it kind of literally, and he wasn't super happy about it. And so he and Eddie had to smooth that whole thing over. But it's so funny on the pressing of that 7 inch, the Bubble Bath 7 inch. If you look like in the right light, right on the outside of the sticker that's on the center of the both sides of the album, he had etched into the side of all the albums it said Mutant Pop ain't shit in
Wow,
like
so it
in
became
vinyl.
sort of
In
its
vinyl.
own like
Yeah.
self-deprecating thing. It became like
Yes.
a
Yes.
self-deprecating thing. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So it
Yep. So,
took on new context in a way.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. But yeah. Yeah, man. That's kind of how that whole thing went.
That must have been like a good kind of thing. Yeah, you know, when you look back on yourself when you were younger, did you think you had something or were you kind of cringy? You know, did you cringe a lot?
Do you mean like do I think we had something like the band what
Yeah,
we were
yeah, kind of in the band, or is some of it kind of like, what?
So yeah, that's okay. I got you. So it's kind of interesting. Like when I go back and listen to that 7 inch, I'm like, oh my God, we sound like little kids. Like it's crazy. It's very crazy. But and so from that perspective, it was kind of there was a little bit of cringe factor, maybe a little bit. It's like,
Okay.
oh, sound like little children. But the flip side of that is I felt like the content that we were creating, the music we were creating was pretty good for the time for that time.
Yeah.
And I felt like we had a good chemistry. We had a good live show and it was full of energy. And I felt like we fit really well with the scene that was coming up in that time. And Cleveland was, you know, like a lot of other areas around the country that were really thriving in that small kind of underground punk rock scene. And so I was really proud of it. Listening to it now is a little bit like, oof, okay. But I think we really grew from beyond that too. Like we released 2 albums after that, and I thought they really actually came out really good, and they don't sound quite as what's the word I'm looking for
Yeah, so yeah, when
mature
it comes to those albums, when it comes to those, you know, those following albums that you released, how did you think about those? Were they more kind of evolved, sort of like more of
definitely.
like what you wanted to put forward?
That yeah, 100%. Absolutely. We definitely evolved. The content got a little bit more serious in terms of the themes. Like it was there was just it wasn't so jangly happy. It was a little bit more you know, it addressed some more things that about just kind of getting older and becoming an adult. You know, that was that we were in that transition of moving from, you know, teenager adolescence to teenager, and early 20s adulthood. And you know, I think our some of the themes of the songs started to represent that and some of those things that were going on in people's lives.
Would you say that both albums were like transitional, like they bleed into each other in a way?
Um, I would say that's a great question. I feel like the second one, which was called Second Base,
Yeah.
was an evolution of the first one. So I wouldn't say they necessarily were planned to be that there was a plan to make them kind of coalesce so much.
Yeah.
Just the natural progression of kind of our maturity and our ability to write songs, I think matured, and so it just kind of led to that type of a little bit different of a tone in terms of the musical output.
Yeah, and when I heard that song Rock All Night, I looked at the comments, the YouTube comments, and then someone wrote, don't know much about this band or what happened to them, but I know that Josh went on to the Beatnik Termites.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
so did you have like kind of like a niche following back then um that sort of made that transition into your stuff with Beatnik Termites?
Yeah, you know, it was kind of interesting. It was a weird transition, and I was really young when that happened too. And like, I actually left the Proms for a period of time to go play for the Beatnik Termites,
Yeah.
and the reason I did that was they were such an established, they were kind of a Cleveland punk rock like staple.
Right.
And they were a great band. They were established. People knew them, and I really liked their music. And when I met the guys and I kind of volunteered to be the bass player because they didn't have a bass player. I was playing bass in these two bands, and they needed a bass player, and I was like, I will do it. And they agreed. And so I left the Proms for a period of time, and it just, it opened up doors that I hadn't been opened before. It was kind of a natural progression to kind of take a step up. Not that the Proms were bad, but they were definitely not quite on the same level as the Beatnik Termites.
Right.
And so I got to experience so many things with them that I will always remember. Visiting the I mentioned the Whiskey A Go Go show. That's just ingrained in my memory. Like I can picture the inside of the venue. And we went to Lookout Records in Berkeley, California, which is where Green Day got their start, and Operation Ivy, and those bands got their start. So we got to go there, and like those types of experiences are things I probably, it would have taken a little bit more effort, and it would have been a little bit different with the Proms. So it was to me, it felt like a good opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and when I think of the Beatnik Termites, and especially in your transition into them, especially being so young, were you surprised that the members sort of took to you in a way? Like, wow, this guy's good. Like, he's not bullshitting.
Yeah, it was very intimidating for me, because I was only 17, and the other two guys in the
And
band,
they had that much faith in you at that time.
They did. And they were a lot older than me too. I was 17. They were, I think, 30 or 31 when they joined the band. And when you're 17, when somebody who's 30 just feels so much older than you, like so much more mature.
Yeah.
So it was intimidating. Plus, based on the fact that they were so established, but it was kismet kind of right from. I mean, it really worked out well. I really fit in really well, and really kind of fit the sound that they were looking for, and it was able to adapt really, really well. So it just, while it was intimidating at first, it got to be extremely, extremely fun.
In the Beatnik Termites release that I saw immediately was you actually covered a whole album, which is like a first for, anything that I've seen. Like, in a way, you sort of stole my idea, because there are albums that I'd love to cover front to back. Pleasant
Nice.
Dreams from the Ramones,
Yeah. So there was a whole series of there's actually a series of those records.
Whoa.
It was put out by I think, what's the name of the record label? Clearview, I think, at the time. It's been so.
Clearview, yeah.
Yeah, but they so they did
just
a whole,
looking on Discogs.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. And so like a lot of the really famous like late 90s mid-level pop punk bands covered those albums. So like the band Screeching Weasel, who Mike Dirnt recorded an album with, they recorded the first Ramones album, and then a band called the Queers recorded Rocket to Russia, and I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. But anyway, so we got to be a part of that, which was really, really, really cool.
That's so awesome. I guess you would call then this transition into a hibernation period. You would call it that because hiatus seemed like you were away from music, but hibernation gives the idea that you were still writing, like on the side. You were still like scrummaging like little bits, rudiments of things that weren't fully songs, but were still kind of germinating, would you say?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting story. I think it's kind of a mix of both, a kind of hiatus and hibernation, to be honest with you, and I'll explain what I mean. So the main driver for that period of my life was the fact that I had a daughter, that was born when I was 23 when she was born.
Wow.
And it was much earlier than I had ever anticipated having children.
Right.
And it was something that I didn't plan.
Yeah.
But it was part of my life, and it changed my life significantly at that moment. And I think the additional challenge on top of that was the fact that so
Right.
she has cerebral palsy.
Oh, I have cerebral palsy too.
I
Small
was going
world,
to
man.
I was going to ask you about that later. I see your chair in the background there. I was going
Yeah,
to do that maybe post interview, but I'm happy to talk about that at all if you ever wanted to get into it. But
cool.
I had some suspicions.
Just
Yeah,
me.
yeah, and I sorry, I mean that came out so negative. That is not how I meant that to come out. I had made some assumptions. That's probably the better word.
Well, you were curious. I love curious people, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I love that dialogue. You know, a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'm afraid I might offend him if I say something." But no, like, especially at that age, I'm 34. I welcome it, man. I
Yes,
welcome it. So
I, I,
this
lo-
is this is
I love that.
awesome that
Yes,
we're able to make that connection. So your
yes.
daughter has CP2, so she became such an important part of your life and your writing even now.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that was kind of the reason for why I had to step away from doing a lot or being very active in the scene was because she required a lot of care.
Right,
She as I'm sure you can understand.
right,
She's actually nonverbal.
right,
She is in a wheelchair. She has a lot of needs.
right.
And she will for the rest of her life. And so being a 23-year-old at that time, it was a tough thing to deal with, and I had to focus so much energy on that that I one, it was my responsibility, so I
Right.
never back down from that. But it also meant that I didn't have as much time for some of the other things like my passions in writing music and playing in bands.
Yeah.
But like you said, there was a piece of it where like I still kind of noodled around a little bit. I still played when I could, that sort of a thing. I tried to write little pieces here and there, and kind of after about probably 15 to 17 years, I finally started to get back into it. So this is roughly 7, 8 years ago. I started really getting back into it, and that's when like the actual like writing started to come out, and it was coming out in a way that like my musical influences had changed a bit, and it was coming out in a way that I was really happy about. Like I felt like I finally found my voice in what I wanted to say with music. Not that I didn't have it before, but it was more profound after the things that I'd experienced in my life. You go through trials and tribulations and challenges in your life, and those kind of shape who you are, and they shape the stories that you tell. And I kind of started to really focus on that, and that's why many of the songs that I write are about her or about moments with her, because it was such an important part of my life. And now that I'm able to express it in a way that is coming out musically, I really love that. It just rekindled my passion for doing what I had done when I was a teenager and into my 20s. So,
Well, it's really cool, like how that became. You were not only able to channel your experience with her into your writing, but it's so cool how it just solidified. And I mean, were there times where it was like you were stepping into like cold water again, having to like kind of retrain yourself to get into that musical space, or were you just like, this is still very familiar to me even after this long lapse of time?
yep. That's a great question. I would say it's a little bit of both on that one too. So like, and I'll give you an example, two examples. The guitar playing piece really came back naturally. Like I wasn't, for that long period of time where I wasn't doing a lot, I wasn't playing a lot. But when I started to get back into it again, I was like, oh, I remember how this feels. And I very quickly became a better guitarist than I've ever been in my life. That I'm a better guitar player now than I have ever been. And I'm really proud of that. I feel like that is something that I've really strived for over the last 7, 8 years as I got back into it. So to answer the part of your question, like that was a piece that kind of came back pretty naturally. What didn't come back as naturally was my singing ability. So I sang a lot when I was a kid. I sang in choirs. I sang in the bands that I was in. I was able to sing harmony, which is a struggle for even a lot of good singers.
Right.
And I was able to do that with ease. And I was really struggling, and so I actually went back and started and took and have been, and I still take them. I take voice lessons. And I had to retrain myself to like understand how to sing properly. And believe it or not, your voice is just like an instrument, just like your guitar or your keyboard or your drums. It has to be exercised and it has to be trained, and you have to do it with the right background and capabilities to be able to do it correctly. And so I've been taking voice lessons for the last 2 years now, and that's something that has been a godsend. I'm a better singer than I've ever been too, which is great.
There's no shame in that game, man. I mean, Neil Peart, by the time Rush transitioned into the 90s, like he still took drum lessons to become like a less like vertical drummer and become more graceful.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. That's amazing.
When you listen to, not when you listen, when you watch the documentary Beyond the Lighted Stage, when they get to Counterparts, I think that's the album that they did in the 90s with Stick It Out. They go all the way about how Neil Peart like reinvented his drumming, like when they transitioned into the 90s, because he was like busting up like drum heads and kits, and he's like, there must be like more to this, there must be something I'm missing. So in the same way, you sort of like not rediscovered your voice, but in the same way you eventually found like the transition like much easier over time as you got back into it.
Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And can I just say, any conversation where I can be mentioned synonymously with Neil Peart, I will always take. So kudos to you for that.
Well, it's just like anyone working on their songcraft, anyone working on their abilities, you know?
Yep. Yes, absolutely, man. I appreciate that anecdote, because I did not know that. And that really like, that means a lot to me, because one of the things that I've realized as I've gotten back into doing this again has been how important it is to actually do things like practice and know your technique. You don't have to necessarily be an expert, but working on becoming a better player, a better performer, a better singer, it takes practice. And understanding when there's an opportunity to do better, and actually acting on that, I think are several things that I find just extremely satisfying. When I hear others do it, somebody like, a legend like Neil Peart, which many would consider probably the greatest drummer of all time.
Yeah, even he still had to practice, That's
absolutely,
the thing.
Absolutely. And even tried to reinvent his technique. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot. And that to me, that makes me feel like these things that I'm doing to be a better player, practicing as much as I can, taking voice lessons, doing these things and kind of trial and error type things, it just makes me feel like I'm on the right path, I guess, is what I'm getting at, which is great. Because I love to play. I love to practice. Like, a lot of people don't like to practice. I love to practice. It's so much fun. It makes it so much better when you actually go out and play.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And so the series of EPs that, again, you punctuated the year with, The Frames and The Faded Picture, they're both 2-song EPs. So, like, take me through it. Does it start with, was it Hand Grenade? Was where it starts?
The very first release was actually Better Alone. That was
okay. Oh yeah, with Better Alone.
Yep, Better Alone and Hand Grenade were paired together.
Yeah.
And then the Idea of Home and All in Good Time were paired together as well.
Yeah, that was Faded Picture. And by the way, I like what you did with your sound. It's a very clean production sound, but you're also able to make it chunky. And it's like, as far as lyric wise, it's like you're you're like completely vulnerable, and you're asking, like, would people care if I'm gone? And then you're saying like, well, yeah, maybe I am better alone. But then, when it goes to the faded picture, like, it seems like you're branching out little by little and saying, like, no, like, I don't want to be alone. I crave connection.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's very astute assumptions on picking up some of those lyrical tidbits. So nice work there. The song "Better Alone." I'll start
Yeah,
with that one. It does paint this kind of, well, I guess first let me
yeah,
take a quick step back. Songs that I find the most interesting from a both sound and lyrical content. To me, oftentimes the most impactful songs. I know I'm probably not alone here, but the most impactful songs are the ones that are much more melancholy in nature, or
hmm,
are about things that are difficult to talk about and have a tone that matches that.
right,
So that's what kind of comes out in my songwriting too, because they're the things that, like, the things that often shape the way you are. Oftentimes, the most impactful things are the negative things.
right.
Let's just put it that way, or the things that you would not deem as being things you enjoy. Like the things that shape how you are those things that the challenges that you face, right?
Yeah.
And so that really comes out in a lot of my songwriting.
Every
Um,
rough patch, every heartbreak, it
absolutely.
matures you like more than the dizzyingly high moments of like triumph. You
Yes.
like when you get to like more triumphant moments, you kind of take them for granted. But
Mhm.
like the worst moments, the trying moments, the bleaker moments, they shape you and they rewire your brain, not always for the worse, sometimes for the better. You're able to think a little bit more clearly.
Yep. Exactly, and I think that's really important for people to understand too. Uh, there's a famous quote. I'll totally butcher the quote, but I think it might be a Martin Luther King quote that I had read years ago, and it was like, the mark of a man, it isn't how he acts when things are good, but how he responds when things are bad.
Right.
And I always liked that quote. It's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that quote always resonated with me, especially in my later years, because I felt like the things that I'd experienced in my 20s and 30s with my daughter had built a lot of resilience. Like, things could have gone poorly. I could have shirked my responsibilities around that. I could have half-assed them,
Yeah.
but that's absolutely not who I am, and it really shaped the type of person I am. That the challenges that you face, the things that the difficulties that you have in your life, are the things that, as you work through them, really shape, really shape who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's what comes out in a lot of the writing that I have, is just kind of persevering, and that idea of triumphing over the challenges that you face.
Yeah. And then hand grenade is all about you basically kind of shortness of breath. You're not sure if you're gonna make it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, because that song specifically, it does touch on some of those themes, but it's also about um, the time, the period of time in my life where my daughter, her name is Emma,
Yeah.
where my daughter's mom and I were no longer in a relationship. It
Oh.
was a challenging period, and it was something that I, is always going to be with me. And it was just a difficult situation, and that's what a lot of the themes are in that song. It's about, this kind of explosion of feelings in the midst of, you know a lot of heartbreak around the things that happened with her mother and I not being in a relationship anymore.
Yeah. And
Yep.
and the way it so like when you get to the faded picture, all in good time, and the idea of home have like they're very happy, kind of chipper songs, but with like a bittersweet kind of edge to them.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's very, very true. They're much more, I would say, like observational in nature in terms of, so like the song, The Idea of Home. There definitely has a more positive spin on those
Right.
songs than the first two.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say they're positive.
Right.
They're definitely more positive than the first two. The idea of home in particular is about it's actually kind of about my family,
Right.
my immediate family, and there are certain lines and certain phrases in there that are about my sisters and my parents,
Right.
and it's just the real theme around that song is that I'm from Ohio. I've lived in Ohio my whole life.
Right.
My sisters do not live in Ohio. They've not lived here for a long time, and it's kind of a comment on one just being a part of a family that has all the same challenges and slight dysfunctions of every family,
As anyone would. Yeah.
as any family, exactly. But it's also about like there are worse things than living in Ohio, and it's where I've lived my whole life, and I'm pretty happy here. So it's just a comment on that sort of a thing. And then when you switch to All in Good Time, that one is really about that one's kind of about what's the word I'm looking for? It's really about atoning for the things that you've done in your life that you either regret or think back on and wish you had done differently. And the point of it is that most likely, depending on the severity, of course, but most likely, time will lessen the impact of those things.
Right. And
And
it's not just a cliche because,
no,
it's true to some degree.
yeah, absolutely, that's absolutely right. And that's really what it's meant to say is just that there are things that I think everybody wishes they would have done differently and handled differently or said differently or just in general had wished I would have gone differently if they had a different reaction or a different or chose a different path. But that's what again that's kind of who shapes who we are. But it's the comment in the song is really just about after time, time is going to, I hate to say that cliche term, like, time does heal a lot of those wounds. It does. It's just the way it goes. And so that's just meant to be reinforced that, just because of what you did in the past doesn't make who you are in the present.
When you go to present time and your newest single, Find a Way,
Mhm.
what I immediately gathered from that, I was listening to it on Spotify, and now Spotify has this visual component where you
Yeah.
can view these like visualizers rather
Yep.
that are associated with it, and
Yep.
it's a perfect sort of encapsulation. Like it's like a sunset sort
Mm.
of drive. It's like you're just kind of, it's like the end of the movie kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah. That's. I'm glad you like that visual. Those are called Spotify canvases, is what they call
Yeah.
those. Um, and I had a friend of mine I played music with for a long time and helps me with like marketing my music. He actually found that, and it really fit the vibe very, very well. This kind of idea of just kind of cruising. But it's kind of funny. Just to talk a little bit about the comment on the lyrical content of that one.
Yeah.
So that song and the next song that are coming out are actually both directly about my daughter.
Right.
And the this one, Find a Way, is written in a unique perspective. The first two-thirds of the song are written from the perspective of my daughter,
Right.
and the theme of it is or the idea of it is that I told you earlier in this interview that
Yeah.
she's non
Yeah.
and when her mother and I stopped being in a relationship together, I didn't do a great job of asking her how she felt about that, even though I knew it would be difficult for her to respond. And when I reflect back on that, it's a major regret that I have that I didn't talk to her about that more.
Yeah.
And so the first two-thirds, like the first couple of verses of the song, are actually my interpretation of what she might have asked me about that situation. That's why they're all in the forms of questions.
Yeah.
And so that first part covers like, hey, if she could ask me anything about that situation, what are some of the things that I think she would ask me? And those are what those questions that are posed. And then the last half the last third of the song is like my response to that. Like, I wish I would have handled this better. I wish I could have done this a little bit differently. And if I could go back and change it, I would. So that's really the theme on that song. And if you look, and also just to kind of comment on one other thing, so the cover art for that, which will be, it'll also be the cover art for the next song too, that'll make up the 2-song EP.
Yeah. What's the name of your 2-song EP that you plan to release?
I don't have the name for it yet. I don't have
you
the
don't
name.
have it. You're still
You got
working
something
it
good, let me know. But the picture is actually a picture of my daughter Emma's hands. So that's her.
Okay,
so
yeah.
those are like her hand contractures that she has, and it's a picture that I took, and I had a good friend of mine do the art for it. And to me, it fit very, very well. I love the visual, I love the image, and I love representing her in something like that because the songs are about her.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so your upcoming
Yep.
song is also your longest song, and like I won't give like too much away because you haven't sent it to me or anything.
Yeah,
But
I'll send you a link to it. You can hear it.
yeah. But I don't know. It seems like the perspective between each of the songs shifts. It becomes less about you and more about like the people in your life. It's you like maturing, saying like
Sure.
this isn't all about me. These are more people in my life that I can write about and that I'm willing to write about.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that as I've gotten older, um, I have developed a certain fondness for the relationships that I have,
Yeah.
whether that be with my family and friends, whether that be with the people that I work with. And it's not something that I really did a great job fostering in my
Yeah,
early
because they're so easy to take for granted.
100%. 100%. You nailed it. And I finally realized how important they are. I wish it wouldn't have taken me as long as it did, but I'm glad that I figured it out when I did. And I feel like I'm a much better person about that, and because of that. And so what it also does in this context is like, some of these things, like every one of these songs that I've written they're very personal to me. They're very personal to the things that I've experienced. And I wasn't always great at sharing about that type of thing.
Right.
And this was a way for me to do that. And not only did I feel like it came out musically in a way that some other people might want to listen to, but it also just was more comfortable for me to actually do that. And I think it helps us have the conversation that we're having, just earlier when we were having the conversation about cerebral palsy. Like
Yeah.
that is not a taboo topic. It's not an off limit topic to me.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have talked about it more when I was younger with my friends and family. But do that now. So here we go.
Good place to start would be probably read up about Christy Brown. Read up about how he's such a no nonsense drunken Irishman. He was a badass, despite
Right.
his limited mobility.
Yeah.
And he had people in his life who really cared about him, and I don't take that for granted because, and not to put the focus on me,
No.
but
No,
there's so much in the way of CP that's misunderstood, regardless of how much you clarify for them. It's like they don't want to. They do understand to a degree, but they don't want to, and they'd rather feel like more comfortable in their biases. They'd rather.
Yep.
They'd rather like take in dismissive things from a doctor rather than learn from someone with lived experience.
Yep. Yeah, I can definitely empathize with that. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's really important to talk about it. I mean, whenever I talk to friends that haven't met Emma or that know her but maybe don't know how to interact with her, or coworkers who I just talked to about her, the one thing that I always tell them is don't be afraid to engage with people.
Engage, ask questions. We welcome questions. We love questions.
Yeah,
There's so much rhetoric out there that said like, oh, yeah, don't like have them expose their medical history. It's not medical history. It's just experience.
yep,
Yeah, the only
absolutely.
thing that's like really kind of weird is how many surgeries have you? I don't know that, but I could tell you like I can
Yeah,
tell you how this made me feel. I can tell you all
yeah,
about like coming to terms with it and like saying like, well, shit, it has to be this hard. I have to put in this much effort. I have to like make note of this level of energy expenditure and everything,
yeah,
spasticity,
yep,
pain,
yep,
discomfort, and
yeah,
then all the while just bullshit opinions, just like rampant. The people
yeah,
just don't want to know, and like all these like prematurely cut off relationships, being dismissed as a complainer when I'm just voicing my concerns and everything. It's
yes.
bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Dude, so like, it's funny. Like, I appreciate your perspective because, while I have the lived experience but from a slightly
Right,
different perspective,
right.
you know, I have it as a caregiver for somebody
Yeah,
who has those challenges
right,
and somebody who can't express them the way you just
right,
did.
right,
And so like these are things that I've assumed in a lot of ways, but it's hard to get them out from my daughter
right,
specifically.
right, right.
So just to be clear, like I really do appreciate you sharing that because even those little comments that you just made, they solidify some things that I've assumed or thought about my daughter that she maybe hasn't been able to clearly communicate to me over these 22 years. A lot of it's based on, you have to just kind of make some assumptions. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that information. And I think kind of going back to what I think where we started this was, which was like the communication, the lack of fear. And I think a lot of it is people's just not misunderstanding, but just they're so naive.
they're choosing not to understand. They're choosing not to understand. They'd rather be in their bubbles, you know, and they want to be they don't even if you want to entertain them, even if you want to poke fun at your disability in an entertaining way, they'll still get uncomfortable. And then they'll take your entertainment as a lecture and they'll shut you down still, you know, but you
Yeah,
have to find some way to do it. And I'm just going to say, like, up front, you know, there's like this blind singer who I really appreciate. And then, you know, there's like times where she's promoting her single and it's like her like exploring her sexuality, wearing like, you know, sexy clothes and stuff. And a lot of people, because they assumed that she's this angel, this inspirational, you
yeah,
know, like kind of educator, that she should stick to that and she can just be confined to that. And it's like, no, this is just one facet of who she is, you
right.
know?
Yeah,
They're not
no,
defined by one specific thing.
no, 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 absolutely not, man. And again, I thank you for sharing that perspective and that comment because that's really really interesting. And that's the one thing that I try to when it comes to care for my daughter and the
Yeah,
comments that I made earlier about like, hey, be inquisitive, be curious, and it's okay to ask the wrong questions.
yeah,
If you don't know, come from a place of honesty and come from a place of genuine interest. And I've told people that like, you know, it's hard to engage with my daughter. She
right,
doesn't always get eye contact and she can't respond to you verbally. So it's hard
right,
for people to do that. But what I can say is that please don't consider that a negative thing.
right,
The impact that you have just by saying hello, asking how your day was, even if she doesn't respond to you. That means more to her than I think you would think it does. And it also means a lot more to her family members who are with her, that somebody would take the time to engage with her in that way, even if it's just little and a fleeting moment. And
Right.
it's important. It's important. It teaches the kind of acceptance that I think we all wish
Yeah,
was
and that's a
much more
huge
permeated.
thing. Acceptance. People are like all about inclusivity, and well, that's good to a point, but acceptance is the next step because we might be acknowledged, but are we really to a point where we're desired, where we're wanted, where we're truly seen on the same level as
Yeah.
those, in our corner?
Yeah.
Probably not. And it's probably going to take ages, centuries even, but it's cool that we have conversations like these,
Yeah.
dialogues like these that
Absolutely.
are truly transformative and are all, let's be honest, they're a part of that engagement. They're a part of allowing yourself to recognize, okay, she might not be able to do this, or this, but you recognize the merit of what she can do.
Mhm. Yep. That's great. That's very, very well said, honestly, man. I love that. And that's exactly how I feel. Like, I accept her for who she is.
Right,
Are there things that I wish for her sake that could be different?
right,
Absolutely.
right.
100%. But
Same with
uh,
me. Same with me.
sure, sure, absolutely, absolutely. And so it's so nice to, oh, well, one, it's so nice to hear from you and hear your perspective because it just continues to reinforce like the things that I've assumed over the years and maybe haven't been able to get confirmed. So I love hearing those things and to kind of bring it full circle and to back to kind of the music talk,
Right.
like those experiences are the things that really those are the types of things that really started to inform um, you know the things I had to say and the things that I felt were important enough to say and that somebody else might be able to relate to.
Yeah.
And when I write lyrics and stuff like that, sometimes there's meant to be an abstraction there. Like I'm not as good at writing lyrics that are just kind of hard on your sleeve. Like, hey, I read this and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's meant to be left open to interpretation to a degree. So while I may have an intent behind the content, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't welcome people's interpretation of what that is. And if it means something slightly different to them, I embrace that. That's awesome, and that's part of the way I like to write. So, the inspiration for a lot of these songs are about the things that I've experienced and about the things that I've experienced with my daughter and just life. My the it's just about the things that I've experienced in my life, and they're for me they're unique, and for a lot of people that I know that are unique, they're not
Right.
unique for you. You know them, but
Right.
for a lot of people they are unique, and so it's an opportunity to relate to people by using these unique experiences and building those connections and things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. And
yeah.
so, considering your musical journey and what you've been up to until now, what have you learned about yourself, not only as a musician, but as a person?
Um, so what I've learned about myself as a musician, I'll start with that one, is is it's important to connect with what you're trying to say.
Right.
And that's a very general statement, but whatever the
You don't
content
want to
of.
write a bunch of bullshit, right?
Exactly. I think it's even more than that, though. I think it's more like what you're the story that you're trying to tell, whether it's true or not. You have to, in order for it to feel genuine to the listener, you have to connect with the lyrics. This is something that I've really worked hard on with actually my voice teacher. It's not something that always came natural to me. And so we really worked on things like understand what you're saying and bring that out in the performance. That is the thing that people connect with. And that, so like that to me is like, not only are you writing things that, at least in my case, that are very personal, the stories are very, the things that I'm writing about are things that happened in my life. But it's not, it can't be just that. It has to be more about connecting what you're saying with how you're saying it and how you're getting it across. And that's what's going to make the performance, whether it's a recording that you listen to or whether it's seeing somebody perform live, that's the thing that's going to make people connect with. So as a musician, that's one thing that I've really learned that I don't know that I really knew when I was a stupid 17-year-old dumbass kid. I just didn't get it. And now I do. And now I do. When it comes to like the idea or kind of how it affects me as a person, I think it actually, the way I'd answer that question is kind of back to a comment I had made earlier, where the connections that you have with people are so important, and however you connect with them, don't take them for granted.
Right.
And it's allowed me to express myself and express some things that I may have otherwise not really been able to express or not really known how to express them or have an outlet for them. And so I think that acknowledging that, the self-awareness of actually figuring that out and being able to do that is almost therapeutic in some ways too.
Right.
And I think that's a healthy thing to exercise. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and lastly, anything you'd like to say to your fans?
I would love to say to my fans, keep listening. I appreciate all of you that have taken the time to listen to my music. It helps build a lot of confidence that and continue and can it builds the confidence to continue doing this.
Right.
And it's something that I struggled with, especially in my 20s and 30s, where I wasn't doing this very much, and to have it come out and have you write something so personal and have people go, "Hey, this is actually pretty good. I appreciate this. I love this. I love what you said here. I love how this sounds." Those little, I get those comments on Instagram on occasion where people check out certain ads and stuff like that.
Even the production of your music is like considerable. Like, who did you work with at that point, at the like coming out of your rehabilitation point?
Yeah. So I worked with two different people. They're both local to the Columbus area in Ohio. The guy that's done the majority of my recording, his name is Jeremy Steckel.
Yeah.
Big kudos to Jeremy. He has a home studio and he knows what he is doing. He knows his shit, and I love him. He is such an amazing engineer, producer, and musician. Just fantastic. And I continue to work with him. Another guy that I've worked with is a guy in Central Ohio. He has a studio called Relay Recording. His name is John Fintel. He puts out some amazing work. I worked with him in the past off and on. He's got a full blown studio, and it's a different experience than working with Jeremy. Not one necessarily better than the other, but they're both really good at what they do. And I have loved working with both of them, mainly because the quality comes through, and they've been able to interpret kind of how I've wanted it to sound and come out in the way that I've wanted it to sound. So they're just awesome. Two local guys that do an amazing job.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And like, for any of you watching, check out Josh. He's been through so much shit in his life. He's learned a lot. He's matured, and he has like great music all around, whether it's his formative pop punk days or his newly matured, newly fastened alternative, slightly crunchy but also atmospheric type of thought-provoking even music.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it, man. This was awesome. It was so great to talk to you. It was so great meeting you for the first time, and I'd love to do this again sometime. I'd definitely be open to it if you ever need a follow up.
Oh man, as many follow-ups as you're open to, man, and
Cool.
yeah.
I, I've got the last thing I'll say is, I've got this next release coming out, which will finish up the third 2-song EP that I'll be putting out. But I've still got more material coming. I've got a couple acoustic versions of some of of a couple of the songs that I've already released, and I'm going in October to record with a friend of mine, the guy who did drums on my first 2 releases. He lives in Colorado. He's got a studio out there. We're going to do another 2-song EP, and do some songwriting together, which is going to be really really awesome. And so that'll give me probably about 10 to 12 songs that'll be released, and I plan on just kind of keeping them coming. So just kind of incrementally releasing them as I go. So uh, look out for those.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Yep, appreciate it, Jake. Have a great day. Okay, man.